Lunch time is 7:24, and we're going to get right to it because we have a lot of ground to cover with our next guest, who is Phil Greazzo. He's the sitting alderman from Ward 10 and a state representative from the West Side. He's running for the District 20 State Senate seat, which includes the town of Goffstown and Manchester Wards 3, 4, 10, and 11. Good morning, Phil.
Good morning, Rich. Thanks for having me.
Glad to have you. So listen, I don't know how much you heard of what I was saying in the prior segment, but I do want to make one thing clear in the ears of my listeners. You know, the conversation I had with D'Alessandro back when I was looking to be sponsored for the Democrat National Convention so we could cover the Democrats, go figure. I was pretty good natured about it when he said, well, I just really don't have the money to sponsor you for $500. And I was very good natured about it. I said, hey, Lou, come on, man. I read your finance reports. I know you got over $200,000 in the bank, and that was before the big birthday party you threw yourself. I said, so, hey, come on, lighten up. And he said, he got angry. He's like, well, do you know what it costs to send a mailer to my district? I said, yeah, probably $8 or $10,000. He said, that's right, $10,000. And he said, my people are telling me I'm going to have to send 8 of them. I said, well, that'll leave you with $120,000, Lou. So what's the deal? Well, see what you can do for $200. I said, well, the sponsorships are $5, so we just left it at that. But Phil,
well, he gave more to a pro-abortion group than he would give to you.
Oh, now you no doubt have been paying attention to D'Alessandro's finances. I understand now. I haven't pulled the reports lately, but I understand he's well over $300,000 raised for a state senate race in New Hampshire. Where's his money coming from, and where is it going?
Well, a lot of his money comes from every lawyer and lobbyist from here to D.C. and back. He gets some from in-state, but not a lot.
Really? So now, what would out-of-state lawyers want with a state senator in New Hampshire?
You mean lawyers from, like, say, Philip Morris or oil companies or things like that?
You mean Lou takes money from evil tobacco and big oil?
He does.
Big tobacco and big oil?
Really? He does.
Well, is it for the children, though?
It must be for the children.
Must be for the children.
Well, it's for the children's gifts that he may buy for his birthday party. I'm not really sure. He spends an awful lot on that birthday party. This year it was well over $4,000.
He spent $4,000 on his birthday, but wasn't that a fundraiser too? I mean, don't you have to spend some money to make some money?
I didn't see any funds raised.
No,
maybe $100 or $2, but
$4,000 on a birthday party.
I don't know if you can call it a fundraiser if it actually.
Lou, I'm sorry I pissed you off. I want to go party with you, dude.
Well, I think that the people of the district might want to be invited to that party too.
Well, $300,000. How many people are in the district, Phil?
53,000.
53,000. So he has $6 for every person in the district in his campaign war chest. That's pretty good.
Well, to his credit, he's been there for a long time, and he's been amassing this fortune for that $100 a year job that he doesn't have to work very hard at. And I know there's a lot of those 53,000 people that do not have a $300,000 personal account, and they work their butts off every day.
Now, when you say they have a $300,000 personal account, what is it about how he's using those funds that you have just called it? You basically just accused him of using the money for his own personal good.
He does use it for his own personal use. Tires for his car, plane tickets to wherever, and I guess you can call that a campaign expense. But if it's all year, every year, he's not campaigning all year, every year. Campaign season comes around once a year, not all year.
What are the laws, Phil, governing the dollars collected for political campaigns? Is there anything that restricts their expenditures?
Expenditures, not necessarily, as long as it's on political campaign. So it becomes a gray area. So, if you've got 3 cell phones, they're not all campaign cell phones all year round.
Does Lou have 3 cell phones?
Many cell phones.
Really?
Sure.
Well, he's got all this.
At least I see multiple billings for the cell phones. I don't know if they're the same number. I'm not stalking the man, but if you look at the finance reports that he's got to file with the Secretary of State, he spends an awful lot of money on personal items that's not campaign related. A birthday party, obviously, you can call that a fundraiser, but if you're not raising funds at the birthday party, it's
a thank you for all the supporters.
It is during campaign season, so obviously you can say that it's a campaign
I did notice
expense,
that on the press releases that they send out, his campaign manager's got, I think it's a 508 area code, Massachusetts area code on her telephone. Of course, that could mean anything. But all right, so on to the meat and potatoes here, because it's not entirely, by the way. There isn't entirely a disconnect from where you raise money to what you do as a politician in many cases in Concord. So where Phil, do you see the big issue differences between you and D'Alessandro? And listen, whether we like him or not, whether we think he's being reasonable in this case or not, he is a formidable candidate. He's been around forever. People seem to like him. And, what is...
Like him or owe him?
Oh, okay. But there seems to be, and this isn't exactly a Democratic-leaning district, or is it?
Well, he used to be a Republican, and I think a lot of Republicans that still vote for him think that he still is. That's one of my jobs too.
That was a long time ago.
It was a long time ago, but there's still those people in that train of thought.
Where are the points in each of your records that differentiate you, and how would you be different as a senator? And there are three issues I want you to tackle: state retirement, taxes and spending, the budget, and then the whole education question, which, from my point of view, is everything from an amendment to what the legislature just did to enable the development of scholarship funds.
Sure.
Here. And by the way, if you have a question for Phil, you can call in at 672-0573. That's 672-0573.
Well, Mr. D'Alessandro and I differ on basically every issue. Retirement should be a defined contribution, not a defined benefit. You should actually know what you have to contribute to your retirement, not what you're just going to get out of it. As far as education goes.
Now, can I stop you on that?
Sure.
Now, defined contribution it's a difference between having a pension that guarantees you a payout and a 401k type of system where you invest your own money and you pick your own investment.
You have some choices, some freedom.
But how does that fix? What are we going to do to fix the actual problem that we have? Because you can switch to a defined contribution problem tomorrow, and New Hampshire still has a $4.5 billion hole in its retirement system that's getting bigger every day.
Well, I think the difference with that is then you'll see people having to actually contribute more to their actual own retirement rather than the taxpayer paying for it, which is where we find these holes. Life expectancy obviously has gone up. So you have people that are living longer. They're taking their retirement benefits longer than they were actually working. And that's what's really putting us in this fiscal bind, is that we're paying out more than was ever put in the system.
Yeah, and that's totally unsustainable.
It's very unsustainable, and we want these people that have provided service for the taxpayers to be able to have something to rely on. But if it's not sustainable, it's not helping anybody, even the retirees.
Well, exactly. And if the system collapses, the state probably goes with it.
I would say so.
All right. So that's where you are on the retirement question. Taxes and spending, the budget.
Well, taxes and spending, I'm not a big fan of taxes or spending. That's your dollars. That's everybody out there who's listening. That's their money. And for the state to just take it and spend it on things that they think are appropriate. For some services, they're essential, but others is kind of wasteful. When my opponent was the chairman of Senate Finance is when you saw the budget skyrocket. And that's one of the issues that I kind of tie to him and leadership at the time, which happened to be Maggie Hassan, who's now running for governor. So that combination up at the State House will take as much of your money as they possibly can.
Well, when he was last here on the show, and you can go to the archive at GirardLarge.com, just put D'Alessandro into the search bar and it'll pull up the archives. He said that it was a great big myth that there was a $900 million deficit, and it was, check your facts or numbers, and he said it was only something like $300 million, if I remember correctly. But he also said that he also said that he opposed the budgets that caused this great big increase in spending and taxes and whatnot. And you're telling me he's chairman of the Senate Finance Committee.
If he's chairman of the Senate Finance Committee, whether he voted for it or against it, he's the man in charge. Where's the leadership there then to be able to get a responsible budget that he could agree to? Mm-hmm. If he couldn't do that as chair of Senate Finance, then obviously there's no leadership there to be able to bring in some fiscal responsibility. So it happened under his watch. It happened with Maggie Hassan as Senate Majority Leader. So I just look at both of those circumstances and realize that if those two are the two that are sitting up in Concord come November, the taxpayers are going to have to pay a lot more.
Girard time is 7:33. We're in studio with Phil Greazzo. He's a candidate for the District 20 Senate seat, which includes Goffstown and Manchester Wards 3, 4, 10, and 11. If you have questions for Phil, you can give us a call at 672-0573. That's 672-0573. Now, Phil, one of the things they're bound to come after you on is all of this alleged downshifting. Well, not alleged. There is downshifting taking place. You're dealing with that as an alderman here in the city of Manchester with the state retirement system cutting its expected rates of return and expecting the municipalities to make up the difference. A number of the cuts that the legislature made have had impacts on everything from hospital staffing to local property tax rates and services. How do you defend those decisions and those cuts as a general rule?
Well, I've heard the term downshifting, but it's really more of the cities and the towns relying on the state for money to come back to them. I would rather see a system in place where they actually kept more of the money locally than having to beg it back from Concord, just like Concord begs it back from Washington, D.C. We all send our money in as income taxes, and we hope that the state of New Hampshire will get some of it back, and then we hope that the state of New Hampshire will send it back to the cities and the towns so that the cities and the towns can operate. And I would rather reverse that and be able to see the cities and the towns hold on to more of their own money, and the state as well. So downshifting was just the state taking care of all these people that all these not people but the municipalities. I forget what the term the finance director called it, but it was not downshifting. It was basically the state supporting the cities and the towns through their own money. So I'd rather see the money stay in the cities and the towns.
Okay, and if you are elected to the Senate, are there areas where you think that you would have different budget priorities than what took place, areas where you might like to see something restored, or as well as areas where you think the state can make better progress? I guess what I'm asking is a question of priorities. Where are your priorities when it comes to the budget?
Well, priorities in the budget obviously are to deal with the things that we need every day, city roads, highways, things like that. But we also have people that are in need in the state, and I'm more than happy to help those that are in need. I'm not looking forward to giving EBT cards to people that want to buy cigarettes and alcohol.
I think you should hire Paul Martineau to run that program. What do you think?
That's a whole other issue. But yeah, so there's definitely people in need that rely on the taxpayer to help them get back on their feet, and I'm all for that. But I'm not about taking care of them for the rest of their life when they're perfectly capable of getting out there and doing it themselves. Priorities for the state is just to live within its budget like the rest of us do. I think I support the move to make the state budget $10 billion. $10 billion is a lot of money. And the amount that the budget has grown in previous years has gone past where we should be at this point in time. At this point in time, our state budget should be around $10 billion. So I think we need to look at ways to get rid of the fat.
And then the final area, Phil, big bone of contention here, state education funding, state education mandates when it comes, minimum required standards, charter schools, big issue now with the Department of Education saying, hey, we don't have any money, and then having to admit they were looking at the wrong budget year. Where are you? What sort of things would you do as a senator to change how we educate our kids, or at least enable our communities to educate our kids here in New Hampshire?
Well, I've been trying to do that as a state representative. I brought forward a piece of legislation that allowed Manchester School of Technology to go from a 2-year program to a 4-year program, which would include all students, not just juniors and seniors. I also voted for a business tax credit for underprivileged kids that could also be able to go to private schools, and their families wouldn't necessarily,
or out of district public schools.
Or out of district public schools, giving them school choice and their parents the freedom to choose how to educate their children, not just being pigeonholed into the current system. I also favor charter schools. I think that we need to be able to find ways for all these kids that have different educational needs to find the opportunities they need to educate themselves and to give their parents the choice. And that word I was looking for was subsidize.
Subsidize.
The state has been subsidizing all of these towns and municipalities, and it's time that the towns and municipalities be able to have self-responsibility just like we do, and be able to keep the money locally instead of sending it to Concord and begging for it back.
You mean they're going to have to make tough decisions at the local level?
I do. You can't rely on the state to fix all your problems. You've got to be able to fix them yourself, and I say that at the board all the time.
Yeah,
you keep borrowing money, and you keep winding up short because you keep borrowing money and you rely on that as your revenue sources, and you can't do that anymore.
And on the education issue, you also had a way of fixing the Claremont thing that you tried to get through the legislature too, correct?
Well, the legislature tried to put a constitutional amendment on the ballot regarding education, and it failed, and I kind of had an idea that it would, and I had a backup plan, which was to just remove the word cherish.
Go figure, take out the word that caused the problem.
The word that caused the problem.
Phil, if people want to learn more about you and your campaign, how best do they do that?
They can call me. My cell phone number is 669-0494, or you can go to philgreazzo.com.
philgreazzo.com, 669-0494. Phil Greazzo, we will be having you back.
Thank you.
We'll be in touch about the schedule.
WLMW 90.7 FM.
It's uplifting and powerful, and it's a good message all around.
New Hampshire Family Radio.
It's just a good station to listen to.